No. Okay. Welcome to Ups and Downs, the podcast that takes you on a journey through the dynamic worlds of entrepreneurship, leadership, and artificial intelligence. My name is Ruslan Rusinov. Welcome to the third episode of Ups and Downs. Today in the studio we have Rajul Chande. Welcome.
Thank you, Ruslan.
Yes. Please introduce yourself briefly, if you don't mind.
So, I am an entrepreneur who started my journey in the UK, which is where I'm from.
Okay.
Currently in Oulu, Finland. And it's been quite a ride, and I look forward to sharing it with you.
Thank you very much for accepting the invitation. It really means a lot to me. I was just going to ask you, why Oulu, Finland? Like it's very direct question, but
I'll give you a very direct answer.
Okay.
In the UK, we had this crazy stunt called Brexit, which for someone like me who has a business where I've never considered boundaries to be a factor or borders. So, one of our key values is to compete around the world, wherever we see the best opportunity.
Okay.
And Brexit was just a crazy own goal by the UK, which meant that we lost our freedom of movement and our ability to seamlessly access the EU market. So I decided to leave the UK, and then I looked within the European Union, which is the place that has the most snow, basically, because I love snow. I love winter sports and I love cold weather. And so, Finland came up, and Oulu was as far north as I could imagine going, which would still be a dynamic city with lots to offer, and of course a great startup scene as well.
Interesting choice. From what I've heard and remember, you're here for around a year now already in Oulu?
So yes, I've been here almost exactly 1 year.
Okay.
And it has far exceeded my expectations.
Okay.
Both in terms of the lifestyle here, which is amazing, access to nature, brilliant community, very educated people, lots of things to do, lots of events, culture, sports. And then from the business standpoint as well, it's been really easy to set up or to move my company here. And it's been a great year. So I'm looking forward to many more over here in Oulu.
Yeah, I was just going to say something on top of that. Like, it's my third month in Oulu, and I also really admire the nature and like the people. It's quite a change for me. As I spent like combined around a year in UK, London, like around a year in Germany, and like coming in Finland, I tried to come with as little as expectations as possible, but yeah, so far it's been quite an eventful 3 months, and yeah, just the access to nature, as you said, like
Definitely.
it's everywhere, and I love it.
And it's beautiful if you're an entrepreneur because you have that balance, you have a counterbalance. So, I'm from London, I'm born and bred in London, and it's a city that never stops, and that can be very stimulating as well, but it can also be stressful. Whereas in Oulu, you can make a very easy transition between your work life and your downtime, and it's a great kind of opportunity to breathe. When you stop working, you close the laptop, and then there's a contrast, and there's no stress at all, and you have great activities and great nature to immerse yourself in. So I think it's actually great and healthy as an entrepreneur to be in an environment like that.
Agree, totally agree. I also used to hate like saunas and spa, and like I wasn't having any of it, and now I'm going at least twice a week, and afterwards like cold showers or like cold
same as you,
plunges.
exactly the same.
And it's I would say I love it.
The Finns have hit on something. I think there's a formula there which is amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Also, like I heard that there were like a lot of saunas here, but wasn't expecting to be like literally everywhere and like multiple per building, or in some apartments there are even like saunas inside. So
yes,
Yeah, very interesting. And speaking of that, like a little bit in another direction, um, when your entrepreneurship journey started exactly?
So actually, you could say that it started almost from the cradle
Mm-hmm.
because my father is an entrepreneur and my grandfather.
Okay.
And I just remember when I was a small child, and my grandfather used to take me on walks on the beach, and he said to me, he used to imply to me that he expected me to be an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just a little boy.
Okay.
So, I had that sense of responsibility. And he always said to me, whatever you do, just make sure you have an impact and that you create some kind of legacy in what you do. So not just making money, but creating some sort of legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And never take. It was interesting because he was an immigrant and my father was an immigrant to the UK, and I was born in the UK. But they left me this concept that you should never take anything from the place where you move.
Okay.
So you should just give, right? Which is quite an interesting approach. And it's almost that it's your responsibility to give something, to have an impact wherever you make your home. And so that's kind of stuck with me in a weird way. I don't think he would have imagined me up here, in the far north. But I'm very much inspired by my grandfather, and that's where I felt the urge to become an entrepreneur. So then, in more practical terms, I had my father, on the other hand, he was an entrepreneur, but he didn't want me to be an entrepreneur.
Okay.
So he sort of focused on, making sure that I had the best education that I could get. And then I followed the natural path of, university, doing a master's, and then getting a job. And, it was a few years after getting a job that I realized that I'm not cut out to be in employment.
Okay.
So, I eventually, I tried working for different types of company, from consulting to multinationals to a startup. But then I decided I just needed to be my own boss.
Okay.
So,
And this is how you ended up like founding Positive Partners?
yes. So it went through many iterations and a lot of failures. So I really sucked at being an entrepreneur. So I felt that because I had the genes,
Yeah.
that I should know what to do, but actually being overeducated and going through a university system, living in a country where you're not going to go hungry, it's kind of, you don't really develop the right mindset, the natural mindset of an entrepreneur. And so I made a lot of mistakes when I started, and I still make mistakes, but at the beginning it was just mind-blowing, how every possible way to fail, I found it. And a lot of it was down to just overthinking and overanalyzing, because that's what you're taught to do, when you go through a conventional education system. So
I'm really interested to hear some more specific stories regarding failure.
So I think at the very beginning, it was analysis by paralysis. So I was thinking about what I wanted to do and spending a long time trying to perfect an idea just on my own. And that is totally the wrong approach. So initially I decided, since my speciality was marketing and advertising, and I thought I was quite good at it, that I would sell that as a service to companies. And in my wisdom, I thought the hotel sector would be cool, even though I had no experience of it, just because I enjoy hotels and traveling. And so I developed, products and services around that, but had zero impact, because I had no experience and because I was basically too much in my own head rather than going out there and testing things in the market. Then I did eventually reach a way to hit the market, and it was just out of frustration. I found a way to actually meet the CEOs of all the big hotel companies in the world. So from having no response at all, I had the CEO of Hilton, Intercontinental, the most expensive hotels in London, all leaving messages on my phone, because I found a way to get their attention. But even then, I built it from that. But it took me a while then to realize later that that was still I was in the wrong market for what I wanted to achieve. So it was sort of mistakes compounding other mistakes. And then basically also being too attached to your own ideas. So, those are, I think, challenges that we all face as entrepreneurs, that, we need other people to wake us up sometimes.
I totally relate to what you said about being too attached to your original idea and not letting it go and pivoting around it. But yeah, I just read something in the Lux Traveler. Is this your blog? As I read a few articles that you published there.
There might have been a long time ago.
Around 10 years, maybe.
Maybe,
more or less?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I was just going to. This was my next question. Is this still a passion of yours?
So this is another lesson, that you should never mistake your passion for a good business.
Okay.
And I love traveling, and I love customer service, and I thought that I could combine my passion for those areas with a business.
Okay.
But in reality, that wasn't the right business for me or for what I wanted to achieve. And the key thing for me was that it wasn't scalable. Because whenever you sell a service that's based either on your time or on a kind of fixed cost, it's very hard to scale it. And it's very dependent on you. So you can only reach a certain point. And so I think that focusing on something you're passionate about is not always the right way to go. If you can find an intersection between your passion and something that really works as a business, where you have a competitive edge, then maybe that's a good road to take. But I got lost for a long time following my passions.
All right.
And what I thought I was good at, and then I discovered I was actually good at something completely different.
Okay.
So very often, the key, what it all comes down to, in my view, is failing fast. And I didn't allow myself to fail fast. So all the failures I had were too kind of slow. As soon as I accelerated my rate of failure, that's when things started to work. That becomes a flywheel.
Okay.
And especially in today's world, and especially if you work online or with technology or social media, your biggest advantage is speed. And I wish I'd known that from the beginning.
Okay. Passive Warrior mentioned exactly the same advice for young entrepreneurs, that you have to fail fast. He gave different examples, but this was his advice, and also the importance of a team. What do you think about that, importance of team, and especially now, as you already mentioned, that your team is located in different countries. I'm jumping from the topic, but still.
Yes. So for me, the name Positive Partnerships, that's been the name of our business from the beginning, even though it's been in many different guises. That concept applies to everything we do. So it's positive partnerships with our clients and our business partners, and also within our internal team. And the people that I work with are all a reflection of myself, in that we all have similar values, and I would find it hypocritical to impose rules on them which I don't follow myself, right? So I don't follow a 9-to-5 working schedule. I'm not location specific. So, they are also able to work from wherever they want at the time of their choosing. And what I have learned is to have people who are experts in particular areas. So we don't have any generalists in our team. I've got about 7 or 8 people who we've worked together for many years, and they're all specialists in an area. and they all just jump in, work when they like. We have a very laid back way of working, no deadlines.
Okay.
We have high standards, but they come from our own internal values. And the idea is that we have fun, we try new things, and fail as much as possible.
Yeah.
Because it's those failures that are really those are really our competitive advantage, because we're competing sometimes with really big companies, and it's a thrill when we can outdo them because we compete with them in the advertising market. So it's very measurable, and if we get a lower cost per lead than these huge companies with deep pockets, then it's because of our creativity and because we're failing fast.
Yeah.
And they're just not going through, they're having meetings and we're executing. So that's the ethos that we have. And I think that having those values is far more important than where someone comes from, where they're based, how many hours they work. None of that really matters to me personally. It's just if we share those values.
Okay, yeah, if you can give a one-liner or just share with a few words for the ones listening or watching, a bit of information about positive partnerships.
Yes. So the way that it now exists, which is the business that I've arrived at after lots of failures, is that it's a scalable company. So we started selling a service. Now we converted that service into products, and we did that by changing our business model. So if you're an entrepreneur, the thing that I believe has the most leverage is your business model above everything else. So we do the same kind of work that we did from the beginning. So we're good at marketing and advertising, right? So where before we were offering that as a service to companies, and we were having to go out there and pitch to companies, now we are really badass. We do it all under the radar, and they find us, the clients find us, simply because we've changed our business model. And now what we do is when we enter a market, we compete with the companies that we want to sell to. So what we do is we demonstrate in a given market what we can do, instead of blah 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 or creating fancy websites or pitch decks, and we simply show that we can generate leads that are the best leads in the market in a particular vertical that we choose, and then they come to us, so we never have to pitch. So companies somehow find us, and then we develop a partnership with a few of them. We qualify, we audition the clients. So we flipped it completely around from a conventional advertising agency, where you're competing with other companies and you do a beauty contest. I've done all that. And, I sometimes won those, sometimes I lost those. But I hated the fact that it was kind of out of my hands. And also I couldn't showcase my skills. So now we choose a market where we know we can generate amazing leads. We develop a brand, which we then kind of start to showcase in the market. Then we get clients who want to partner with us because they want our leads, and they pay for all the advertising. So it's cash flow positive as well. So again, before where we would invoice the clients after, now we bill them before. And they're falling over themselves to get our leads. So we've converted. So, when you're an advertising company, you're selling the idea that you will generate revenue. You'll basically generate client opportunities for, whoever you work with. You'll give them customers. But most advertising agencies are shy about saying how they'll do that, how many they'll get. We just say, how many customers do you want? How much revenue do you want? And we process lots of data, so it's not something that we can say out of thin air, but we test it in the market. Once we know how much we can get a customer for, how much it would cost to get a customer for that client in that market, then we can very easily say, okay, we'll sell you 100 leads for $10,000. And you only need to convert 10 of them. and then you're going to be making a 10x ROI,
Okay.
and then it's a win-win, and then they'll buy more leads. So then they buy. So we take a risk on the advertising, but it's a win-win situation. It's a business model where they pay on performance. So that was the big switch. So Positive Partnerships is a pay on performance lead generation agency.
Okay.
And so that really differentiates us in the market. So we're not seen as an advertising company or as a marketing agency or anything like that. We are just there as a partner for companies that want to really dominate their markets, and we'll only choose one or two partners to work with. So that and then eventually what we do with these brands is we sell them to the partner. So not only do we profit from it as a kind of cash cow while we're running it, but we will then sell it back to the client because they then want that exclusive to them.
Okay.
So it's a little bit tricky to understand at times, but it's kind of going underneath, going inside the market, becoming an insider.
Okay.
And therefore, you don't have to compete with everyone else. But it only works if you go into quite a narrow niche. So that's another general lesson I would say for entrepreneurs, which I learned the hard way, that you should never go for a broad market. You should always go for very narrow and as deep as you can go.
Okay.
And then you don't have any competitors in many industries. And then if you layer onto that a geographical market, because most people think as a default they have to compete in their home country.
Yeah.
Why?
Okay.
And I found the biggest success I had was by going way outside, and in my case focusing on the USA.
I was going to ask like follow-up question. How you transformed your like the business model, and like by the business model like the entire business itself? Was there like any aha moment when you realized, okay, this is not working, or like it's working, but in order like to scale it, like we just have to stick with that decision, take the risk, and see if it works? Like, I'm really interested about.
That's a great question, because it was actually out of desperation, because I scaled the business that was providing social media management and marketing services to hotels up to a certain point. So, we were getting paid monthly retainers, and we were doing quite well. We had some really amazing, well-known luxury hotel brands, on our roster. But it was only doing well if you look from the outside, because I was kind of stressed, managing a team. The clients didn't fully appreciate what we did, and because they were paying us a fixed fee, and it wasn't scalable because it was a service. So it was, for me, it was when I found a mentor who kind of looked at my business, and he was in the same he had gone through the same journey as me, and he had converted his service business into a lead generation business just by basically just flipping a switch. It's just as simple as just changing your offer to clients. And in my case, it involved going into another different vertical, because that model didn't really work in hotels for different reasons. And as soon as I flipped that switch, and it was born out of frustration. The only way I could actually do it was by throwing away my old business. So I basically sacked my clients just overnight. So I went from thousands, tens of thousands a month in revenue to zero. I just decided, I was so frustrated with it because I couldn't go beyond a certain point. Because the other thing you find with many businesses, they appear to do well, especially from a revenue standpoint, but all that matters is profit. And so by flipping to this other model, we also changed our metrics and how we look at everything. And we were cash flow positive from the beginning. As soon as it was scary at the beginning because we didn't have any clients, but as soon as we repositioned it and repurposed everything, then it was just, it was beautiful. to see that you could do the same kind of work but have 10 times as much impact.
Impact, yeah. Like, what was the marketing strategy in the beginning, especially as you said, like that you changed like the industry basically, like leaving the hotels aside and like doing like providing similar services like in a different form, I would say. Like, like I assume the beginning wasn't easy. So how was it like? Was it like through word of mouth or like through warm introductions, warm connections?
So I come back to the biggest impact you can have is change your business model, because if you change your business model in a way that you have an irresistible offer, then it changes everything totally, because it doesn't take much. You know, I closed the first client I spoke to basically with that model because you're just different to everyone else. Like, you know, these companies are used to people approaching them and asking for money, basically. You know, they're tired of people asking them for money, and they take the risk, you know, or they feel that they're taking all the risk because they're investing in advertising and marketing as well as your costs. So actually by having an irresistible offer, by spending time crafting an offer that makes you unique in the market, you just don't have trouble finding clients. You know, you don't have to pitch it. It's attraction marketing.
Right.
So that's what I would advise any startup or any entrepreneur to think about, is how could you convert your offer into something that just naturally, magnetically attracts your ideal clients. Very often you'll have to go through several iterations to achieve that. You know, you may have to change a lot of things about your product or service, your team. But when you get to that point, then you can focus on actually doing your job well and delivering value, and then it really snowballs. You know, so it was scary, but it wasn't as hard as I thought. And then the other aspect of it was that with COVID, so COVID was actually a massive blessing for our business, because, you know, we do everything digitally and we use a lot of software, a lot of tools, everything is done remotely. So when COVID hit, we were like, you know, we were inundated with business. And at the same time, I also found a business partner, which was another thing which I think is important. So for many years when I'd failed, I'd also failed to recognize that the problem was me trying to rectify that failure, because obviously if I'd created the mess, I'm not the best person to clean it up, you know? You can't be objective. So, you know, someone once told me this great phrase: when you have a problem or a challenge, think who, not how. So instead of thinking how to solve it and going deep into the weeds of, you know, all the possible things you can do, which I did for a long time, just think of who can help you. So in my case, the who was this mentor who I mentioned, who helped me change my business model. And then through a mastermind group of this mentor, I found a business partner who was in a similar predicament to me, based in Canada. And as soon as we joined forces, we decided to join forces to attack a particular vertical in the USA. We just crushed it from day one. We were just totally, everything we do together as a team is just magic. So, you know, we just have an ability to complement each other. We have the same values. The clients love us because they think we're kind of operating 24/7 for them, because we're in different time zones. And it just accelerates everything. So as I mentioned, speed is the key, right? So with the two of us operating in sync on different sides of the Atlantic, we can just move twice as fast. And you know, we've had all kinds of stuff happen, like competitors trying to rip us off, people trying to sue us, you know, our clients trying to copy us, all kinds of stuff. But we always move ahead faster. So that's a great feeling. But you can only do that if you leverage those kind of partnerships. So, you know, I called my company Positive Partnerships, but it took me a long time to actually build a kind of horizontal partnership as well as the kind of client relationships and the team relationships, also having another company that has the same philosophy. We partner and we achieve 10 times as much growth as we would operating individually.
So you met your partner like during COVID, right?
Yeah, it was just before
Okay.
COVID, and we just
Okay.
decided to, while everyone else was shutting down, we accelerated, which was amazing because we had. So the way we compete is on cost per lead, right? So we're advertising alongside big companies and big brands, and we try to get better leads than them for a lower cost, which sounds almost impossible, right? Better leads at a lower cost than the existing players. And we do that through creativity and through consistency. So, we're omnipresent, we spend every day. Whereas the big companies will have meetings and they'll say, oh, it's going to be quiet over Christmas, so maybe we should slow down. Or maybe, this week, that region, the sales team is off or something, so we should shut down that campaign.
Okay.
We don't do that. We are consistent. So the ad platforms love us. And we also run very social media savvy, very modern advertising. And we have a very disruptive approach, disruptive brands. So, so during COVID, we just went gangbusters.
Nice.
And so, again, that's another thing I would advise. Go the opposite way to where, the crowd is going, in your market.
Okay.
Because, it seems counterintuitive at times, but just test it and see. Never take anything that someone tells you at face value. And when people say to you, oh, you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't be doing this, or the conventional wisdom is that, test the opposite, and you'll be surprised how often that works.
All right. And what about the team afterwards? Like you expanded up to 7, 8 people. Now, was it through active hiring, or was it just... I'm really curious how you ended up meeting the right people.
So I think there's a lot of serendipity, and I generally work with specialists. So quite often I met people who I thought were really good, and just working them as they were freelance specialists, and I just brought them into our team. And because I can offer them the best of both worlds, they have complete freedom, and we don't impose any rules, any hours, or anything, and they get a steady income as well with us as well. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Are you hiring right now, or you're...
So it's interesting. So this is another thing with our business model. We scale through the ad networks, right? Just by spending more, by more advertising, and by selling more leads. And because everything is electronic, the whole process is behind the scenes using web tools. So there's no extra cost.
Okay.
So there's no reason for us to really have a big team. It would just increase complexity of management and stuff, and we would lose our edge in terms of testing and stuff. So yeah, we're always a little bit overstretched, but we do fine, and we can handle more business just by building out more landing pages or whatever.
Right.
It's not. We don't really need a lot of people to do what we do.
Okay.
And so, I think that's another thing where I get surprised. I'm surprised sometimes with startups that follow the kind of conventional routes, where they get VC funding, and then, because I was in one of those startups and we got loads of funding to hire people, and then, 6 months later you have to sack them because the company didn't meet its targets and stuff. But to me, that was ridiculous, because if you can have a business model that is cash flow positive and profitable, then as a founder, you have so much more leverage and so much more control over your business. And, you can actually grow through technology. I mean, the benefit of technology is that, you can scale.
Yeah. Speaking of technology, sorry to interrupt, I was going to ask, are you utilizing AI currently, in your daily work, or not, in terms of gathering, generating leads, or even building landing pages?
So what we do, so it's interesting. So we try to do a bit of that stuff in-house, but then we realized that it's not our speciality to develop our own AI kind of tools. So we leverage the tools of platforms that we use. So obviously there's the ad platforms and they use AI, and we have our own methodology for running ads to leverage that. And then we use landing page software that also uses AI, and we leverage that.
Okay.
So we have ways that we leverage it. We have specific ways that we set up campaigns and funnels that leverages AI, but we're using other people's AI. And then where we have our own, it's on stuff like data, so data dashboards, and how we pivot our strategies and our campaigns and our assets. So we use it kind of indirectly. And then with things like, something that's very popular in our industry is using AI to generate content and even to create lots of ads and things like that. So we deliberately don't do that because we found, again, it's the contrarian approach. Because since everyone is using it, what you're finding, what I'm seeing in the market is a lot of things that are quite similar because the AI feeds off the same inputs when it's creating content. So actually we've gone the other way. We develop really creative, me and my business partner, we brainstorm really creative ideas because no AI can come up with those, at least not currently. So that's kind of our edge. And we use automation a lot rather than AI. So we use automations to make sure that our partners get leads in real time and they get a lot of information about those leads, which allows them to have a higher close rate than all their competitors. So they love buying leads from us because they not only get the leads, but they get the leads set up and qualified. And we use a lot of automation behind that.
Okay, very interesting. What about pricing? How you ended up with the pricing packages that you're offering? Actually, I'm not quite sure that I know it exactly, but do you provide different packages for the clients, or is it a fixed rate?
So we don't talk at all about pricing. So this is another thing that I learned, from years of marketing and kind of failing, with the normal approach where you make a great presentation and then you reveal the price. That's not what we do at all. So what we do is we simply demonstrate that we are generating opportunities in that market that they're in, without even saying that we're going to sell them those opportunities. And then they naturally ask us, well, could you send us some of those? They sound pretty good. We've seen your assets and your website and everything. It looks pretty interesting to us. So how about you send us a few? And so then from that, we have a discussion, but it's very much a partnership discussion. The way they're thinking, so it's about trying to put yourself in their shoes, right? So it's a company that invests a certain amount in marketing and sales, right? So they will have a cost. They will know their cost of acquiring a client. And so you basically just want to understand what is their current cost of acquisition of a client. And, we're very transparent about our numbers and we ask them for their numbers and we just compare notes. And we say to them, okay, well, you acquire a client for this much. What if we supplied you a client for the same acquisition cost that you have, but you get all this extra information, about they desperately want that service that you're offering. They've already pre-filled a form with all the information you need. And, they've already been primed about what your company does. And then generally they'll be a bit skeptical, but they'll say, okay, let's, we're willing to give it a go. So then we just simply say, try it, because we're already generating leads in the market. That's what, none of our competitors do that, right? So we just send them 10 or 20 leads. And what usually happens is that then they see, okay, these are pretty decent leads. We're not trying to rip them off. We're sending them legitimate leads. And then they'll probably close a deal or two for free. And then we start talking about the commercial deal. And the commercial deal can be either they pay us per lead, which by that stage they'll be comfortable because they'll see, damn, if we're going to close 1 in 10 of their leads, then we're going to make this amount of ROI. 10 or 15 times is what we generally aim for. Okay. So we think about it for them first. Like if they can make 10 to 15 times ROI, then we have to get our lead cost right to allow that, and we want to make about a 50% margin.
All right.
Right. So we have to generate leads for about half the cost that we're selling them for. We don't actually need to generate them for half, but we like to because then we have a comfortable margin, and then it's a win-win situation. And then basically they order leads every week, so we get them onto a weekly cycle. So they usually do a trial first, then they do, let's call it a paid trial. So they might just buy 50 or 100 leads for a price that we agree, and we won't be too aggressive on the price at that stage. Then when they come back and ask for more, and generally we know that our leads are doing well when they call us a few times and say, hey, what about the next batch? And that's when we properly then kind of figure out, okay, what's our cost per lead? And, we give a fair price per lead. So it's always based on a kind of interactive approach with the clients based on their interests and then our interests. And then sometimes the numbers won't work. So sometimes it will be, we can't profitably supply them the leads they want. So that's fine. We go to someone else.
All right.
And, both sides are happy. Sometimes we do a trial and we break even. And so, they want more, but we say, no, thanks. Okay. And then sometimes they'll come back and, so I think that's how it should be. It should never be a sort of, a big pitch and, we have to convince them to buy it. It should be a natural process. And that's also part of the attraction marketing where they've come to you, right? So it changes the whole dynamic.
Thank you very much for sharing about it. It really changes my perspective about that. Do you mind sharing any specific story, for example, when you thought we have this company, let's say, and you thought that you were going to be partners, and then after all of a sudden they drop or something? Is it happening often or?
It does happen, and that's a great thing. That's a great thing because generally, trying to work with someone where there just isn't quite a fit, either in terms of values or the kind of business offer or something like that, it's never really going to work out, So what we aim to do is to find 1 or 2 partners who we can scale with. This was another lesson I learned the hard way, that I always thought you have to diversify. You have to have 3 or 4 or 5 clients. And, and then you, if one of them leaves or whatever. But in reality, it doesn't work like that. You have to create such a symbiotic relationship where you both depend on each other. And that's where you do really excellent work together. And they end up buying you out. That's happened a couple of times now. So I know it's not a fluke, where we work so closely with one company. So you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find Cinderella.
Right.
But, it's definitely worth it. And it's liberating when you're on sort of equal ground. There shouldn't ever be a supplier client relationship, where one has more power than the other. It should be a very well balanced relationship.
Okay, very interesting.
So yeah, we've had cases. We've all kinds of clients. We've been ripped off by clients. We've had clients who didn't treat our leads well. Where we cut the relationship, even if it's profitable for us, because it affects our reputation in the markets. We've had situations where the client has said, no, your leads are too expensive, but then they've come back again.
All right.
So we've had all kinds of stuff going on.
Thank you very much for sharing. Yeah, we can continue with positive partnerships in a minute, but I want to ask you about Toastmasters. How you ended up in Toastmasters Club, in the first place, and then right now, do you mind sharing a bit?
Yeah, so public speaking, I think, is a great skill to have in life. I think it's something which will always stand you in good stead. And I remember when I worked for this very kind of traditional, stuffy British multinational company. And, you know, we had sales meetings and stuff. And one time I had to give a presentation, and I gave a really bad presentation, and my boss came up to me and said, "That was a bloody disaster. You were embarrassing. You were so boring. You were so bad." And so, you know, I made a point of kind of paying more attention to my presentation skills. But that wasn't why I joined Toastmasters, because I already felt my presentation skills were okay. And as I mentioned to you, you know, I don't particularly like pitching, and, you know, the clients find us, and, you know, we find that we're able to sell with a great offer. So I just want to reiterate that if you have a great offer, you can be crap at pitching, you know, and you will always sell because your offer is so good. So with Toastmasters, it's interesting. So it's a public speaking club, but I didn't join it to improve my public speaking. I joined it to kind of fine tune my copywriting, because when you write ads, each word really counts. And, you know, it can make, like, a good ad can halve your cost per lead. It can double your profits. You know, we have ads that we've been running for 2 or 3 years, and we don't touch them. It was just one moment of inspiration, created a short ad and a video, and it works forever, you know. And I believe in any market you can find that. I really believe that in any market you can find one ad that will crush it for you. And so, you know, but that takes a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of trial and error. And so for me, the interesting thing about Toastmasters is that very often you have to make a spontaneous speech. So you're given, you know, a word or a topic, and you have to speak about it for a minute. That's very similar to writing a social media ad, you know, where you've only got a millisecond to interrupt the feed and get someone's attention. And so I wanted to just keep that skill sharp. So I joined Toastmasters almost from a copywriting perspective, that I have to write copy in real time. You know, I have to kind of bluff my way through and, you know, find a good hook to get someone into the ad, then have copy which tells them a story, and then a call to action, like all with the spoken word. And so I think it's a great organization. It's worldwide, even in Oulu there's a branch. And I think it's really amazing what you get for it for a very small investment.
I totally agree. Like about a week, maybe 10 days ago, I was attending Erasmus project in Bulgaria, and one of the participants had his Toastmasters club in Malta. And yeah, it was like, I wasn't expecting that it was going to be that popular. Yeah, at the end of the project, he delivered like a short speech, which he was like practicing. And I totally agree, like there are a lot of benefits coming from Toastmasters, and I'm looking forward like to start my time there. Like I attended only once, but yeah, I'm quite open.
You should
I
definitely
also
come
want
back.
to improve my public speaking and presenting, so
It's definitely useful. It's definitely useful
yeah.
because you don't know in what situation you'll be asked to make a speech or make a toast. You know, I was asked to make a toast at my friend's birthday one time, you know, make a speech at a funeral. If you've been to Toastmasters, it becomes easier to handle those situations.
Let me check if I have a lot of questions. I wanna tailor them. Yeah, what advice do you have for like aspiring entrepreneurs, for people that are just starting?
It's always tricky because everyone has a different perspective, they have different skills, different business models, different interests. But I think some general things that I would highlight from my experience would be to say that in today's world, the biggest competitive advantage is speed. Speed is huge. Like doing things badly and imperfectly, but fast, you'll be way better off than people who are, you know, procrastinating or having meetings, you know, because we see this all the time in our markets. you know, that it's like people often copy our advertising because it's visible, you know, out there in the market,
Okay.
but they don't realize that we've already moved on to the next and the next. So being fast is huge, and being ready to fail a lot. You know, it's actually it's a great thing. You know, I know it sounds like a cliche, but go aggressively for failure.
Yeah.
You know, be really like intentional about that, and then have an execution bias. You know, like not like what I did at the outset. You know, which was analyze and put together really nice reports and, you know, what I thought were great products. It's a total waste of time because the market will have changed in the interim. And so, you know, I think it's Facebook that has the motto of break things fast.
Okay.
You know, I think that's a great philosophy to have. Go for these kind of sub niches where you can. Try and pick a market where you can position yourself as the only player through the depth of your knowledge. Be open to choosing different geographies. Who, not how, was another one.
How, yeah,
So
noted.
when you face a problem, think of who can help you, who's already been through it, because you can solve the problem instantly. You know, instead of spending months, it can sometimes be an instant solution if you find the right person to help you. Choose something scalable, or at least turn it into something scalable. Try to leverage attraction marketing rather than outbound. Be cash flow positive because it will give you so many options. And even measure, like we measure monthly profits rather than revenue. You know, most companies, especially startups, will have their revenue kind of run rate and they'll be very proud about hitting revenue goals. I mean, you know, we have revenue goals as well, but we just all the time we track profits. Like our profit is our revenue, if you like. You know, we just look at it like that. And also take profits out. So another thing we do is we come in and out of markets. That's a bit because I and also my business partner, we get a bit bored. So, you know, we like to grow things from 0 to 100 rather than go from 100 to 1,000 where you need a lot more operations and systems. We're not so into that. So we tend to leave a market and go into a new one.
Okay.
But that's healthy because you take profits out. You kind of cash in when you're on a high. Don't wait for the cycle to turn. Don't think you're God's gift and, you know, to whatever market you're in and that it will continue to crush for you because markets change, especially nowadays. And, you know, it's hard to be objective about the risks when you're in there. So it's better just to take profits out, which we do by selling a brand or, you know, just refreshing everything every so often.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing. And yeah, can you name any upcoming projects or events that you're excited about? Like maybe even on a local level in Oulu?
I mean, you know, I have to come back to Toastmasters because
okay.
there's an event in Tallinn, which I'm going to on Saturday.
Okay.
It's a competition, so I'm representing Oulu. And it's a humorous speech contest.
Okay.
So I think we have meetings in Oulu every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks on a Tuesday evening. So I would recommend that for anyone who wants to have fun because it's a very supportive and friendly environment, as well as developing a skill.
In networking, yes.
So yes, so that's the event that I'm most excited about.
Saturday. Okay. Is it going to be like broadcasted anywhere?
I'm not sure. I don't think it will be broadcast because it's a district level competition.
Right. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Like crossing fingers, like
Thank you.
that you grab the prize, that you bring the prize to Oulu.
Yes, I hope so.
Yeah. Do you mind like recommending like your favorite book, like or the one that?
So it's interesting. So I always used to read books about my area of interest. I've got it written down here somewhere. So, you know, I always read books about kind of marketing and sales and how to apply technology to marketing and stuff like that. But the book that has had the biggest impact on me is a book called Profit First. So the author's name is let me just find it here. It's Mike Mikhailovic's. And this book is amazing because I think he is also a sales and marketing guy, but he's kind of taught himself accounting.
Okay.
And the biggest reason why most businesses fail, especially startups, is because of cash flow, right? They don't manage their cash flow well. And this book just hits the nail on the head, and it talks about how you should like set aside your profit first and basically build everything from a kind of profitable business model, and also how you scale profits. So it's not really a book about accounting, it's a book about how to manage your business from a profitable perspective, which actually frees you to do so much more, to have a much bigger impact, outside your work, if you want to do some kind of social enterprise, as well as, have a more stress-free life, not rely so much on investors or third parties. The only time I look at outside kind of investors or VCs is for advice. So, I'm not looking for capital ever, because that always comes at a cost. And, it's far better to have the freedom to let your clients finance your business and your profits, reinvest your profits. And so that book is one that I would highly recommend.
I will add it to my reading list. Thank you very much. Anything else? Do you want to share anything else? This was the final note in my notebook. Regarding, or was there anything that I haven't asked you and you wish to speak about?
Let me just check my notes.
Yeah, sure.
I think we covered most of it. I really believe that anybody can grow a business if they focus on looking at it from the customer standpoint and figure out something that will just deeply resonate with the customer. Because that will give you the tools, that will give you everything you need to create your irresistible offer and that perfect ad, or, the perfect foundation to attract those customers to your business, so that, you don't need to be hustling all the time, because hustling it's necessary at the beginning, but it's exhausting. And if your business idea is compelling enough, you shouldn't need to hustle. If you're having to hustle a lot, it shows that you're not really differentiated in the markets. It's a bad sign. Entrepreneurs wear that as a badge of honor sometimes. I'm hustling, I'm going out there, I'm promoting my products. Of course you have to do that to some extent. But if you're doing that a lot, you've got to ask yourself, why aren't people coming to me?
Growth, yeah.
And it's better to focus your energy on repositioning, repurposing, polishing what you offer so that it really attracts the energy that you need to grow your business and the resources.
I have to think about them. Just one more thing that came to my mind again. Speaking of the power of mentorship, we met during Startup Weekend where you were a mentor, I was participant. My idea was about mentoring actually. MentorMate was the matchmaking platform that connects mentors and mentees. So do you still have a good connection with your mentor that kind of helped you scale positive partnerships, or do you have what are your thoughts about?
So he's just a message away. He's in the UK, and it's a lifelong relationship.
Okay.
I think if you find a good mentor, you should also keep in touch with him or her, and and make it a symbiotic relationship. You know, so I'm now an advocate for him. He's proud of what me and my business partner have achieved because we're both his mentees.
Okay.
And it was like us joining forces multiplied the impact of the things he taught us. So, you know, always think about how you can find people who will kind of multiply you and what you can achieve. It's not just through having complementary skills. You know, that's what people think, that, okay, I'm good at this and my partner should be good at that. That I think is a little bit of a simplistic way. You know, that is obviously a factor, but I think you should also have the ability to really do what the other does as well. You kind of reinforce the other, you know? And so I think those relationships are really important when you're looking to grow a business. Like the relationships you find will determine success or failure and the extent of that you grow.
Also, was you sharing like similar values with your like co-founders or like?
Sometimes you can't even put your finger on it. You know, it's just an energy that you create. So my business partner in Canada, when we work together, everything just works. You know, even when we have setbacks, we always turn them around. You know, with sales calls, it's ridiculous. Like we together, like individually, we're not bad at sales. You know, we will close a good percentage of deals. But when we're together, we just have a way of riffing off each other, you know, and it's just a level of confidence you have working with someone. And I think if you can find people like that, that's even more important than the business that you're in or anything like that. You know, there is a certain number of magic people, you know, that will be out there that kind of fit you, that you can work with. And then, you know, you can let the magic happen when you meet those people. And then it becomes fun as well, right? Business should be fun. It should be fun because you spend so much time on it. You know, it should not be a grind. But that doesn't mean it should be your passion. It should be fun because you're enjoying it, you're getting results, you're doing what you love. But then, you know, you can have other passions, you know, outside work. I think that's a healthier way than having everything invested in your work.
Do you want to share anything else as like?
No, I think you've asked some great questions, and I'm
Thank you very much
happy
for
to be here.
having you, and like, I really appreciate the conversation, and we can call it a day.